There's something amazing about when you watch somebody and you watch the tank start to get bigger. You've set this parameter around yourself because that's what everybody else is doing in your office. You feel pretty safe there, but then all of a sudden it's like, do you even realize what your potential is? And that's when you get to jump into the bigger tank. Welcome back to Life at 10 Tenths, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. Matt Bonelli is here with me. My name is Garrett Fry, and we are excited to be on another journey with you today. We are going to discuss today about how big your bowl is that you're in. This comes from a friend of mine. How big is your bowl? I'm talking about goldfish. But how big is your bowl that you're in, and how that can limit your growth or allow you to grow bigger? As we jump into this episode, I want to let you know that we have an amazing community that you should come be a part of. We have an incredible group of people that are growing in this community. We just did an event the other day, and one of the feedback that we got from our people is that this is so fun to have a place where we have like-minded people that all want to grow, all want to be the best. And one is I want to say thank you for sharing that, but also I want all of you to know this is what this community is about. This is what we're growing. And go to lifeat10tenths.com. You can learn a little bit more about it there. And then you have opportunities to come and hang out with all these great people. And that's what this is all about.
Yeah. And get in there too, because we have another event coming up on Wednesday. So just in 2 days, we have another Success Lab with an incredible guest too. It's not going to be run. I mean, Garrett and I will be there, of course, but we have this amazing guest who was just on the last episode. So if you want to know who it is, go listen to our last episode if you haven't listened yet, because he's coming on the Success Lab and going to run that workshop on Wednesday, and it's going to be incredible. So if you're not in the community, dive in there.
I'm so excited to have him in. He's got the most amazing energy. As my wife says, she goes, out of all the people that I listen to in the real estate world and speaking world, so there's something about his positivity that is contagious. Like you just want to be around more of his energy. So I'm super excited for that. The reason I started off jumping into what this episode is because this is something that came from a conversation that I had with him. And we were talking about the idea of how big is your bowl? And he says, I'm a goldfish. He says, I grow to the size of the bowl that I'm in. And it made me stop to think, Matt. It's like, we watch this happen all the time because like he said, I am a goldfish. I grow to the size of the bowl or the environment that I'm in. But it's a funny thing because it's not just him. Like, he's owning it that I'm a goldfish. We're all goldfish. We all have these environments that we put ourselves in. We have these bowls that we have constructed of this is the world that we live in. And how many of us are trying to go, maybe I need a bigger bowl. Maybe I need to expand this out. Maybe I need to break down some of these walls of these restrictions that I think this is how the world works and maybe see it from a different perspective. And Matt, I'm excited to go down this journey with you today and open up, maybe expand our bowls.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. Yeah. And I want to expand mine as well, and always seeking how to. And we can't keep him a secret. It's Matthew Ferrara, guys. If you listen to the last episode, it's Matthew Ferrara. He's an incredible thought leader in the real estate space, and he's leading our workshop on Wednesday. So come and experience that. And I love how he brought up this goldfish idea. And it also made me think of Steve Harvey's video that a lot of people have seen it. And if you haven't, just Google Steve Harvey lid off your jar, talking about fleas and how they jump. And if you put them in a jar, it constricts their ability to jump. And they only learn how to jump so high, even though they have a vertical that is outrageous. And if you take the lid off your jar, if you dream bigger, if you put yourself in a bigger bowl. And Garrett, I think there's two components to this too, right? There is the physical bowl that you're in, and then there's the mental bowl that you're in, right? There's a graphic, a stock photo that exists out there. I've seen it come up over the past multiple decades where it shows a goldfish in a small bowl, and next to it is a bigger bowl. And the fish is jumping from the small bowl to the bigger bowl. Many of you have probably seen this. Garrett, you've seen this. And it was like, think bigger is the caption. People put a whole bunch of captions on there, but there is the physical, but there's also the mental to be able to increase the physical, isn't there?
You got to know to go looking. And that's, I think, for a lot of us is that we can get into an environment and mentally we just go, this is the word reality that Matt and I hate so much that comes up all the time. But it's like somebody says, well, I want to be realistic. Well, realistic is a lot of times you defining what the edges of your bowl is, the edges of your environment. That's what realistic is all about. And a lot of times we don't even know the questions to ask. We don't know what that might look like. Matt, you shared a great story with me when we were getting ready to do this episode today. And it was specifically about what Ed Mylett charges for phone calls, so just specific one-on-one phone calls a year with them. So the way you shared this was a gentleman that you work with and kind of opening up his mindset to like, he charges what?
Yeah. Well, and this was funny. This is a good friend of mine who I hadn't talked to in years, and we were catching up and just talking about these things, and he's going down a new path. And I had suggested, it was like, with your experience, I think you could be an incredible consultant and coach to business leaders. And he's like, oh, I never really thought of that. It's like, do people really pay? Like what do people pay for that kind of thing? And I kind of explained what I charge for coaching, and then also what I pay for coaching too, because I like to grow as well. And I always find myself going from this group to this group, and it always gets a little bit more expensive each time, but you expand your bowl when you do that. And currently I'm in a coaching program with Dan Martell, who wrote Buy Back Your Time. Great book. And he gets coached personally by Ed Mylett. And he shared that he pays Ed Mylett, this was the number, $350,000 a year for a once a month, 45-minute phone call.
That's not bad.
And I was sharing this with my friend, and he was like, wait, what? You can charge, like, people charge up to this. He's like, wait, who would pay 350? I was like, well, if you're making 8, 9, 10 figures and you want to go to 11, 12, 14, then, you pay that much for it. If you're looking to knock on the door on the billionaires club, which right now some people are going, wait a minute, I just want to, like, if I could be a millionaire, that would be awesome. Right. It's like, but this is where, if you can expand your vision, it doesn't mean that you're going to get there. It doesn't mean that you want to get there necessarily. But Garrett, when you understand that exists, all of a sudden it's like, well, what could I do?
There's two elements at play here that I'm kind of hearing. One is there's the individual understanding their value, and then there's the ability of getting the value out there to the world so others understand your value. Ed Mylett is a great example because he has grown. He's grown fairly, fast. So he's become a fairly household name. At least if you're in our world, he's more of a household name. I'm sure I could go next door and talk to my neighbor and be like, Ed Mylett, and he'd be like, who?
Isn't that the coolest thing? When you can go next door and be like, who the heck is Ed Mylett? And you're like, oh, just some guy who charges $350,000, which is probably not even a big revenue maker for him. That's just what it costs to get his time. Like, he's built businesses and a whole bunch of other stuff that probably make him a heck of a lot more money than that.
But at some point, Ed Mylett decided, and he became okay with it, that's what it's going to cost for my time, my energy, the value I can bring to you. I'm totally okay charging that. He knows he brings the value. Dan, your coach, basically bringing it up and saying, like, this is what I do. He wouldn't put that out there if he thought he was wasting money and time with Ed Mylett.
Oh, he was proud of it too. He's like, this is what, these are the things that people pay for growth. And even thinking about what people pay for personal trainers and stuff like that. I mean, there's scales to this based on, how you view your bowl.
And then there's people out here right now going like, there's programs like that actually you would pay that much money to have that type of results and growth and whatever that might be. So there's a couple elements in this, but at some point, either Ed's bowl blew up because of the people he was surrounding himself with. The gentleman, your friend that you were talking to, his bowl just like pushed the walls out. Like, if you can imagine somebody standing there just putting their arms out and just pushing on the walls and being like, oh my gosh, there's more room here. I didn't even realize there was more room. Or that fish jumping to the next tank. You literally just let him jump into the next tank. And ever since you guys had your conversation, he's probably been going, well, let me take a look at that. Let me do more research. All of a sudden, he's looking up different websites, different programs, and going, oh my gosh, people actually do pay that much, or at least even a fraction of that to open up his world. Like there's something amazing about when you watch somebody and you watch the tank start to get bigger. I think it's why I and you have loved coaching people for so long, is because you get to watch somebody come in and they're going like, yeah, I want to do this. And it doesn't take very many conversations before I'll go, you do realize like your threshold is like 200,000 higher than where you're sitting right now. Like I hear what you're saying. You've set this parameter around yourself because that's what everybody else is doing in your office. Your friends are doing. These are the incomes that are the people that are in your sphere. You feel pretty safe there, but then all of a sudden it's like, do you even realize what your potential is? And that's when you get to jump into the bigger tank.
And this is so much more than just money too, right? This is, this is your health and fitness. This is your relationships around you. This is, yes, you are worthy of that relationship. You are worthy of that time. You are worthy of that familial status, whatever it is that you like constrict. Because I think, Garrett, one thing I find when we start to think bigger, we start to like try to push out the tank. And this is, I think the mindset comes before the physical environment, right? Because our mindset will drive how we create our physical environment. Is when you start to think bigger, automatic negative thoughts start to creep in, and this happens all the time. It happens to me as I'm even having this conversation and being like, gosh, could I ever charge $350,000 a year? That's a lot of money. Could you do? And I was like, oh, hey, ant that's in the back of my head, you need to go away. You need to just, I acknowledge that you're there. And so whenever you have these ants, automatic negative thoughts that come up, is to be aware of them and start to say, okay, great. Why is that there? And how do I push that away and get back to my conscious part of my brain and really visualize this big thought? Because if you give yourself that permission to think bigger, it's going to then help you make the decisions to create the physical environment for yourself that will then allow you also to grow bigger.
So it's interesting as you were kind of going down. I think that those limiting beliefs, the ants, and I'm happy you put the words to ant automatic. Automatic
negative
automatic
thoughts. So I think is Dr. Amen coined that term, and I'm actually reading a book of his right now, which is phenomenal.
The way I learned it many years ago is that's that little voice trying to protect you. It doesn't want to see you get hurt. It doesn't want to see you fail. It's protecting you all the time. And the farther you push the goal out, a lot of times that's where that little voice comes in and says, that doesn't fit with anything that I understand in my world. Charging $350,000 a year for, 12, 45-minute phone calls, that pushes everybody's like realm of reality of like, that doesn't make any sense at all. I don't get it. You got to look at that somebody who's also making a ridiculous amount of money to be able to go, yeah, I'm paying for that. I'm going to do that. Like that's got to make that all those pieces have to kind of fit together. And all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that's tall. I see the value. I'm going to go do that. I was thinking about this because we haven't talked about this in a while, but I started a journey well over a year ago of saying, hey, I'm going to cut alcohol out of my system. And in full disclosure, again, I have a shot with my wife every year on our anniversary because it's just too darn important and I don't miss it. And I had a really big moment happen about 3 weeks ago. And my wife and I celebrated with a shot of tequila at a restaurant. And it wasn't multiple shots of tequila. It's one shot of tequila. We high-fived. We enjoyed our shots. And we walked away going like, if that's going to be my relationship with alcohol going forward, I feel really good about my world and what I'm doing. I don't need to cut it all the way out, but that was worth it. It was a great celebratory moment.
Ed Mylett's a tequila fan, by the way. Just
exactly. 456 days, though, is what it's been today since I started the journey of saying I need to redevelop my relationship with alcohol. So 456 days as of today. I looked it up just 2 seconds ago because I haven't looked at it in a long time. When you look at who you're surrounding yourself with, it's been fascinating as I've shared that journey, as I've put it out, the amount of people that have come to me and said, I have changed my journey because of what you shared and what you did. and your insights of what it's done for you physically and mentally and everything about that. My closest friends in town that we used to always get together and have, beers, and we'd go and sit in the garage and stare at the car for an hour and, have a beer or two while we sit there and do that. I've had many conversations with them where they're like, because you're not drinking, I'm not drinking anywhere near the amount of what I used to drink. And one of my friends, our thing was beer. That's what we drank together. He's like, I haven't had a beer in I don't know how long. I'm like, really? I'm like, and he's like, yeah, I just don't have the need to do it anymore. But it's who we're surrounding ourselves with. It's our environment that we're in. And I think a lot of it, and just like this conversation that you just shared with everybody about Ed Mylett, it's like, that's no different. All these things just start to expand your world around you and make you look at it a little bit different and say, what maybe could I change? What are little adjustments I could be doing to be the person that I want to be that person that maybe if I dream just a little bit bigger here, what actually is possible? What are the limitations I've set on myself because of this tank that I have?
It's amazing also how quickly, 456 days.
456 days as of today. Yeah.
And it sounds like a lot of days, but you're talking about, not even a year and a half yet, right? And the transformation that can happen in that amount of time, just from thinking about something a little bit differently and then giving a simple action, right? And it can transform your entire environment, your entire world. And this is the beauty of making that bowl bigger and then physically going out and saying, okay, well, now who do I need to surround myself with? Because people will absolutely help you push the walls out on that bowl. And it's incredible when you go into different environments. And that's one of our commitments with the community, with the 11 Circle, is to make sure that is an environment where the walls are being pushed
always
out, where the limits are being pulled off. Because it goes to 11, not 10, it goes to 11, which 11 is a symbolism for whatever you want it to be, right? So that's our commitment in there. And I find, Garrett, if you are able to think bigger, you actively seek out. You had said asking the right questions too when we were dreaming, right? It's like, is this possible? I don't know. Let's go find out. Let's go ask those right questions. And we just did an episode, I think, recently on question asking. But when it comes to your dreams, ask yourself the questions. And I actually was thinking about this earlier today, actually, funny, before we even talked about this topic. I was like, how do I dream bigger in a way that feels comfortable for me? Because sometimes if I dream really big, I'll in the back of my head say, well, that's not attainable, right? Like that's, maybe it is for some people, but not for you, at least not right now, right? I'm like, okay, well, what if I gave myself permission to just enjoy that vision? Just soak it in, use it as entertainment for myself in a factor and just kind of like pretend, hey, what would it be like having that? And then be objective, use what I'm saying to myself as objective visualization, and start to walk that vision into today and be like, well, what would it be like to get that house? I was specifically thinking about a mountain house this morning. I was like, okay, well, if I walk that back and say like, well, what are the experiences I want to have there? And are there stepping stones to that? It's like, I don't need the $30 million house tomorrow. That would be really cool. But, what would it look like to get a house?
If you could have a mountain house, where would it be?
Right now, probably in driving distance from here. So probably North Carolina and the Blue Ridge Mountains, right? Or if I wanted to go a little further, head up to Tennessee, be in the mountains in Tennessee, but somewhere in that mountain range. But I was like, okay, well, what would I need to do over the next year? How much money would I want to save? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? Right? And be objective. So when I say being objective, and this is what my thought process is, because our subjectivity brings in the ants, that brings in the automatic negative thoughts. But if you're objective and you're kind of just looking at it as a third party, there's no negative thoughts because there's no really consequence to that thinking. It's just, what would it take? Yeah. So anyway, I didn't have a full, complete thought yet on that, but I was like, if I just do objective visualization and start to visualize those little steps, well, that house first, and what's the car then when we're driving up to be there? How old are the girls when we're going there? Be like, okay, that seems a lot more attainable and reasonable. And I'm just slowly pushing out those walls on the bowl. And I would challenge people to kind of use maybe that thought process when you're thinking really big and you're like, that's just too big. It's like, okay, well, it's not too big. One, two, let's just objectively walk that visualization down the ladder a little bit to a place where you can just touch it right now. Because right now I'm looking at it, can't reach it, but let's just bring it down to where I maybe can touch it a little bit.
Well, and interesting also is like and by the way, Matt, I don't know if you have anybody helping you yet with real estate up in that area, but I have a great realtor in Boone, North Carolina I can connect you with if that's necessary.
I know a few people.
All right, just checking. Yeah. If you need help, I got somebody for you. It's interesting. I go back to like my journey with racing, and I've shared this on podcasts and the old podcast that we used to run about how when I was really young, I was one of those kids that when you would come up to you and say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I had two answers: a comedian and a race car driver. Those are my two things. No doctor, no lawyer, no comedian, race car driver. And we've talked about how my dream, my goal on being a race car driver got shrunk down. My dad did it accidentally. And he said, here's the reality about being a race car driver. You got to be born into a race car family. You got to have these types of things. You got to have crazy amounts of money to be able to do it. And my bowl got really small. And I was like, well, I don't have any of that stuff. Like, that's not the family I grew up in. So I guess that's not going to be the dream of mine. Still surprised I haven't ended up being a comedian. That's still on the list. Nobody took that dream away from me. That's just one I haven't pursued, I guess. But what's interesting with as the bowl got changed over the years, one of the critical parts was my dad got a hold of me and said, I want to apologize. And he didn't say for making your bowl so darn small, but he said, I limited your goals by sharing my limitations with you. And I all of a sudden had this moment of like, oh, that's not a reality. That was your reality that you gave me. Okay, so what is the reality? And that opened up this moment that I got to see outside a little bit and say, well, what are the elements that you can go and race a race car on a racetrack? And all of a sudden I got introduced to a series called the 24 Hours of Lemons, not the 24 Hours of Le Mans, 24 Hours of Lemons. You can go research it. It's awesome. And that then caused a friend of mine to say, hey, did you ever hear about this? At which point in a week's later time, I bought a car. And he's like, what do you mean you bought a car? For $1, everybody. I bought a car for $1. There's a whole story behind it. It's great. But all of a sudden, it's like, here I had my world was opening up because it wasn't about buying a $250,000 race car and being on a race team and out there and being sponsored and all this stuff. It was like, no, I just want to go race. Like, let's just start there. That led into, well, there's all these little racing leagues. Oh, there's licenses. Oh, there's driving schools we can go to. Like, this is interesting. Porsche puts them on. BMW puts them on. Like, all of a sudden, I'm ending up at these other environments. All of a sudden, Matt, you and I were at an event where the lady came up to me at the end of it, handed me her card and said, I really like the way that you drive. Would you want to come race with our team? And I'm like, well, what does that look like? And that started to expand my horizons. And which then said, well, like now I'm building a car. And my initial whole thought was building it for a whole certain series. And now I'm like, you know what? Maybe we want to build this thing up even more as I'm learning how to do this and how to grow it. And maybe I don't want to race in lemons with this certain other car. Maybe this is a higher level of racing that I want to do, requires more skill. It's a little bit more money, but it's like, I can see it now. I never could have visioned it earlier on. And I think this is the thing is, as we grow, as we change our environments, as our doors open up around us, Matt, you and I were just talking about going to more conferences. And a lot of that was, we want to expand and let people know what we're doing right now. But a huge part of it is like just being around more people growing and expanding their environment. And this is something I want to encourage all of you to do, because this is how it works. Because very easily you can dream big and all of a sudden shut it down because all the limiting beliefs, or you can start to expose yourself to it. And all of a sudden it's like, ooh, there's an answer, there's an answer, there's an answer. So sorry for going on a tangent there, but this is where my brain was going as you were talking with me about this, Matt.
I think it's awesome because I think, sharing these thought processes hopefully it's helpful for you guys listening, because what we really want to accomplish here is for you to first think mentally, give yourself a bigger bowl so that you can go physically provide that bowl for yourself so you can grow. And, just one fun stat on the financial side. A lot of people have a goal to become a millionaire. I'm sure a lot of people listening, if you're not already a millionaire, some of you are, it's like, hey, I want to get to that stage, right? It's like, but maybe that's only for the few, right? Garrett, how many millionaires do you think exist in the United States?
I'm in a broken circle, Matt. I hang out with a lot of I want to give you a real high answer, but my mental space is skewed.
Let's go with, okay, how many? So there's what, 300 million people in the US?
Yeah.
How many adults, how
Gosh,
many?
I'm going like with the 1% rule. Like I'm like, this is like a 1%er type.
US. Okay, there's 153 million tax returns that are filed in the US. So, how many of those are millionaires?
I'm literally going to lean into like the 1% rule, because I really think it's a much smaller number than we even can begin to imagine.
So that would be like 1.5 million people you think are millionaires?
Yeah. No, there's more than that, but keep going.
Okay. There's 24.5 million millionaires.
I was trying to go super conservative, because I'm like, I feel like I talk to too many people that like are. That's okay. So keep going.
That's the cool thing about this, because like even like looking up that stat for myself, because I was like, well, I wonder just how many people are there, right? And what the other interesting thing, the stat here is like, when you think about what is the opportunity of being here in the US, well, 37% of the world's millionaires are here in the US. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Right here in the United States, which not only means that if there's 24.5 million people who've done it, you could probably do it too. But there's a lot of people that you could probably connect with to help you expand that so that you can also become that, right? How amazing is that? I mean, that's I think that just the opportunity is there. So if your tank is not expanding right now at the end of this episode, like, hop on the Google machine and ask some questions to expand that tank for yourself.
Well, and it's interesting when you talk about finances, Matt. Like, I have put myself into an environment of people here recently that it's really interesting to hear somebody nonchalant, just super, just easy, going like, "Oh yeah, I had my first $300,000 month," and it's not like one of those like, "Oh, I sold just enough that month and it made it happen," or we had a launch of something. It's like, "Oh yeah, that's my platform I created, and that's just what it produces." And it's just like, whoa, okay, like,
yeah.
And I've had my world just continuing to be pushed out here as I'm learning more and more about people's environments and how they do it. And whether it's real estate, those are walls that I've been breaking down for a long time for a lot of people. Of like, you don't even realize the potentials that you have sitting right in your world right now. And then I'm just as the space that I'm in, the life that I'm in right now, I am looking out at every other platform, different industries, different things going, I know I had a friend one time that said, I was always looking for the good job, and I realized that I had the good job. Like, real estate was maybe the only way to make these really like, great lives, great living, whatever it might be. And the reality is that there's incredible environments all around us. You just got to go ask questions, surround yourself with the right people. Real estate might be your platform, but there's 100 other ways out there to create something that's massively impactful and massively successful mentally, financially, like everything for you out there. And I'm going to encourage you, like, take a step back and ask yourself, like, what bowl have I put myself in here? And maybe I want to step outside of it for a little bit. Conferences are a great way to step outside your bowl, by the way, and kind of be like, well, I'm in a new environment, new people. Even if you're a wallflower and you stand in the back and just soak it all in, going, who are all these people? Like, where did they come from? That is expanding your bowl.
It really is. Another great place where people can go to help expand their bowl, Garrett?
Oh, I've heard of this recently, Matt. What is it? It has it? Is it a 11 what? Life at 10 tenths?
The 11 circle at Life at 10 tenths, right? Yeah, man, dude, great topic. I love it, guys. If we really, I mean, this is what Garrett and I love to do too. We love, I mean, as we say in our mission statement, helping people live at the pinnacle of their ability and purpose, because that goal is so much more than just money. I know we talk a lot about that because there are a lot of limiting beliefs around that, but you know, identifying, living what you know is your true purpose and what you're really good at and what you enjoy. Like that's what we want to help people do. And we're doing it inside of our community, inside the 11 Circle. So just go over to lifeat10tenths.com. If you're not in there yet, you can see the options to subscribe to that and hop in there. On Wednesday, Matthew Ferrara is going to be with us, and he's going to be hosting our Success Lab, which is going to be absolutely incredible. And we would love for you to be a part of that. And Matthew would love for you to be a part of it too.
And that's part of your membership. Like if you join in with the membership and you're part of our world, these are the things that just come. We're going to be doing these every single month. There's actually a lot of different stuff. You can go check it out there.
Yeah, it really is. So guys, and as always, you can stay tuned into this podcast. If you're listening on the audio platform and you want to see us, head over to YouTube, because we are on YouTube now as well. You can subscribe to our page there and see not only our full length episodes, but we got some shorts and stuff on there too. If you want a little, jolt from the podcast, you can catch those things there. But we appreciate you guys so much. Stay tuned in. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you, everybody.